and used to service this school for PSAP and other programs. When it was even elementary, that makes me pretty old. But then it became just middle school, which is kind of nice. So, I'm from Friends of King Kaumoli'i. This poster is going to go with Mr. French's classroom when you leave. And we'll get another one for Mr. Berta, is it? Yeah. So I'm with Friends of King Kaumoli'i, and how many of you have seen the statue that we installed at Pa'ula'ula? Yes? You've seen it when you go by, right? Just supposed to kind of salute the king. So, long story short, it took us a lot of years in writing grants to get that up, but you might remember some of you had a foreign name. It was called a Russian fort. Along with putting the statue up, a few friends of mine, Dr. Peter Mills, who did archaeology here in the 90s before you were all born, and he's been working on that and research since then, and the name of the fort is wrong. The guy tried to take over, and he came from the Russian-American company, but King Kaumoli'i kicked him off and Kamehameha together in about a year's time. So that was then, and then somebody came along and did a map. Well, it was a Hawaiian fort. We call it Pa'ula'ula, red platform. But Hawaiian fort works as long as you don't see the R word. This man came along after Kamehameha III had decommissioned the fort. There was never really going to be a war there, okay? It had cannons and everything. And the man that came went right over there, and he was a map maker, cartographer, and he was hired by the territory of Hawaii under King Kauikeola. Kauikeoli. Anyway, he drew the map, but he was too lazy to go into Waimea Town and ask anybody who might have worked there a couple years ago. And so he said, oh, I remember a story about it being some Russians being here. So on the most important first map, he wrote Russian fort. And from that time, historians, especially local ones, just kept reusing that wrong title till finally we got it changed. Just a few years ago, 2022. Yeah, 2022. And that's another long set story for another time. But since that time, because we wanted people to get, especially in the local area, to remember that this is your fort. The Hawaiians that lived here centuries ago probably have relatives that are related to all of you guys right here. Some, not all, but some. Because I looked at the names of charts, and I recognized some of the local last names that are here. So in any case, our mission then became, after the statue was up, to get people more connected to Kaumoli'i's story, because he was an independent king, higher rank than Kamehameha actually, ruled at the same time, but he had a treaty that there wouldn't be a war here because Kamehameha had gone around to the different islands with warfare and had conquered the other islands, but not Kauai. That's another long story. So, in order to have us connect to the history, my favorite way is not just reading books, although I like to read books. It's through art. Anybody here like to doodle? Doesn't even have to be major fancy kind of stuff. When you're doodling and using your hands, you're activating your brain. And this is a friend of mine, Humuhula. Long time I've known her. And she is from Anahola. So she teaches, she has a halau out there, but is also very interested in art. And so she started doing these special culture to canvas workshops. And I said, you know, you do these out in public, how about we do one for the kids? There are some kids here that did one with Brooke Tucker. that did one with Brooke Parker last year. They did phenomenal things. I think their stuff might be posted somewhere. So we thought, well, let's do some more art to learn about history. And so that's why I invited Kumu Kehalani, Kekua.
This is just one of she.
Yeah.
So can we give her encouragement?
Thank you, Maureen. This is the first time ever. I'm from Anahola, which is like coming from another planet out here to Waimea. So I'm delighted to have this time with all of you and to visit your school, which is very impressive. It's clean, it's big, it's organized, and I haven't been in the classroom as a student for decades now. So this is truly an honor. I want to unfold some stories and weave in customary practices and the history and the culture of our Hawaiian ancestors. So we all live here. It doesn't matter if we were born here, or if we moved here, or our family has been here for generations. What does the word kuleana mean? Can anybody tell me what kuleana means? What is it? Responsibility. Exactly. So kuleana, we all know it means responsibility, but it also means a right. It can also refer to a benefit. And it also means obligation. So it depends on how you're using the word. But all in all, it all relates to this value of having responsibility. So part of kuleana is to continuously learn. And so I found, when I became a kumuhula, which is many years ago, I found that it was really important for me to continue learning. Just because you graduate or just because you take on a certain rank or a status doesn't mean that you've accomplished everything. It actually brings on a lot more pressure to continue to learn, so that when my haumana or when students ask me a question, I'm hoping that I can address and reply with an answer. So we're gonna weave in different words. And so by the end of today, hopefully you leave with a few words. I've written some here, can hardly see it, but if you have good young eyes, maybe you can. So this word here, mo'o. Can anybody tell me what mo'o means? What do you know of mo'o as? Mai hila hila, don't be shy. And it doesn't matter if you're not sure of the answer. Raise your hand. Anybody tell me what mo'o is to you? Yeah, like a lizard, right? Or a reptile. So when we look at mo'o from an ancient Hawaiian perspective, we see the lizard or the reptile, or in some perspectives, even a dragon-like mythical being that has all of these, like this lengthy vertebrae and a spine. And so when you see that, just like us, we have our backbone, our komo'o. Komo'o is your backbone or your spine. And so what we see is a continuum of all of these vertebrae. So mo'o is that, but it also has to do with the continuity and perpetuating information and history and ike, or knowledge. Okay, so from the word mo'o, there's other words that we're going to talk about. But today, because it's important, we're here for the ali'i nui, our ali'i nui Kaumoli. So one of the things that came to me as I was trying to prepare for today was to share about the importance of mo'o ku'auhau. So there's that word again, mo'o. Anybody ever heard that word before? It's kind of a big word. You want to guess? Anybody? No? It's okay, because not a whole lot of people know the Hawaiian word mo'o ku'auhau. But in my cultural practice, it's really, really important. So, I want to just share this with you, and then I'll explain to you why. Okay? O ke ia ka mo'oku au hau o ka ohana o ka hou kapu. O ia ka mamo ali'i o na aha kapu e iwa o haholani hua mahua. O haho ke kupuna kahiko ke ia i ewe mai ka lai kumukahi ai ka velo o lehua. O ka hou kapu ke kāne o la a kapu ka wahine no hopu lau a hanau ia o kauhola nui mahu. O kauhola nui mahu ke kāne o ne hula ka wahine no hopu lau a hanau ia o kiha nui lulu moku. O kiha nui lulu moku ke kāne o e lea ka wahine no hopu lau a hanau ia o liloa. O liloa ke kāne o a kahikule ana ka wahine no hopu lau a hanau ia o umia liloa. O umiali loa ke kāne o ka pukini ali loa ka wahine, noho pulau a hanau ia o ke awenui a umi. O ke awenui a umi ke kāne o ko opili a hai ka wahine, noho pulau a hanau ia o umi o kalani. O umi o kalani ke kāne o pi'i mauilani ka wahine, noho pulau a hanau ia o kanaloa ua o. O kanaloa ua o ka piko o ka hale o mahi. O ia ke kumu pa'a o nā lala e kolu, o mahi o loli, o mahi kukuku, o mahi kapalena. O kanaloa ua o ke kāne o kihamo i hala ka wahine, no hopulau a hanau ia o mahi kapalena. Mahi kapalena ke kāne o ke aku ka wahine, no hopulau a hanau ia o ke aka o kalani palena. O ke aka o kalani palena ka wahine o paiau lani ke kāne, noho pulau a hanau ia o kuwehie paiaulani. O kuwehie paiaulani ke kāne o kui hewa ka ipu aina ka wahine, noho pulau a hanau ia o mahi hele lima kuwehie mahi. O mahi hele lima kuwehie mahi ke kāne o kahina papukoe hu ka wahine, noho pulau a hanau ia o John mahi hele lima mahi. O John mahi hele lima mahi ke kāne, o Rose Louise Hiona ka wahine, no hopulau a hanau ia o James Kelly I mahi ai emi oli mahi. O James Kelly I mahi ai emi oli mahi ke kāne, o Lady ka ipuai ululani ke kua ka wahine, no hopulaua a hanau ia mau keiki e ha. O ke ali I wahine o ulani ka wahine, o noi wehi ke hao o ka lani ka wahine, o ka wehi lani ka wahine, a me o ke hao lani ka wahine. O wau o ke haulani ke kua. Kahi aku o ke ia lala o koma kokohana. O wau o ke haulani ke kua, ke kuuhula o halau palai hivo o ka ikuai. O ke ia kama o ku au hao o ka ohana o ka hou kapu. O la ka hāloa o koma ko ohana e ola. So, I just introduced myself to you through my ancestors. So all of those names were all my ancient ancestors. Anybody want to guess how far back that goes?
No hapa Hawaiian. Meaning I don't understand Hawaiian.
It's okay. It's okay. But there are words that you heard repetitiously. What were some of the words you heard over and over?
Oh, I was about all things.
Okay, how far back do you think that goes?
That's my lifelong. That's my, I live my whole life.
More than that. Yeah. So, see, it's important in Hawaiian culture that we know who we are because of who we came from. So, we're really lucky. I'm very fortunate because this is my father's side genealogy, and the Mahi clan were warrior chiefs that originated in Kohala, and then my father's generation and all of his siblings were all born in Iao Valley. So my father's side of the family is from Maui. My maternal side of the family is from Kauai. And so I cited the name Kahou Kapu, which is the farthest that I can confidently go back by memory. And I have to practice all the way driving from Kanahola because it's been many years since I've done it. And this talk for me with you was really important. So I really wanted to remember it. But we're very particular and choosy as to where we're gonna share these names. And it's not meant to show off or anything. It really is to teach and to invite in the energy or the mana of our kupuna kahiko or our ancestors, to guide me so I say the right things. Whatever it is I'm supposed to share, I'm asking, please be present, help me, inspire me, guide me, keep me on track. So mo'o ku'auhau, there's that word mo'o again. Ku'auhau is genealogy. So mo'o ku'auhau is a continuum of one's family history. And a mele mo'o ku'auhau is what I just shared with you. Mele in Hawaiian means song, but it also means chant. So it's a genealogy chant. And I was tasked with learning this when I was a young teenager as a student in Palau. And I worked really, really hard. And actually, I learned many more generations, but my old brain cannot pick it up. So that's as far as I went back. So I wanted to share with you, Kaho'okapu was born approximately 1327. So that's the 12th century. So that's like 700 years ago, more than 700 years ago. So when I got here, I was like, how many generations is that? So I Googled it. And I want to share it. I'm going to just read what it says in my phone. It says, if a common ancestor lived over 700 years ago, then genealogical research methods would be unable to trace them. I just did. And it says that this is because genealogically useful records are typically limited to kings and nobles, which my father's ohana is descended from warrior chiefs, and ali'i of Kohala and Iao, and usually only extend back to around the year 1500, which is about 20 years ago. So this is, 20 generations ago. So this would be far more than that. I have no idea how many generations, but circling back to Kaumo'ali'i, and every ali'i in the history of the Hawaiian people, in their aluali'i or in their court, there was always a genealogist, and sometimes a group of genealogists, and that was their job. Their job was to commit to memory and memorize all of the ancestors and the ohana and the family in oratory. So we didn't have reading and writing back in those days. So these genealogists had to commit all of this information to memory. So they did it like how I just did it. They would commit it to chants, genealogy chants, mo'olelo, there's that word mo'o again, or stories, and pass it down from one generation to another. So, how many of you still have your grandparents alive today? Wow. That's okay, you have at least one, right? Okay, that's awesome. So your task, and it's really up to you. We're not going to check or anything, but I want to encourage you. When you go home, take the time to sit down and ask them questions. And not pushy kind, but, ask them about, when they were growing up, or do they remember this, or what are some of the stories, or tell me about your when you were a keiki, and tell me about your grandparents, and what do you remember about Kauai and Waimea back when you were a child? If you don't ask, they won't tell you. And many years ago, I had long graduated, but my niece, who was in elementary school at that time, was in Kulakaiapuni in the Hawaiian Immersion Program. So she came home with this major assignment, and it had 3 projects. They were only required to do one. All had to do with family history. So my sister, my niece's mom, which is my younger sister, called me and said, I'm sending Heui to you because she has this project and I have no idea what it's like. So my mother was still living at that time. And so when I looked at the ha'awina, I looked at the projects, the homework, I said, oh my God, this is exciting. We're gonna do all of them. It's like there was this missing link in this long chain. And so while working with her, I found that ancestral connection, which took us back many, many more generations. Precious, precious stuff. So that's one thing I want to encourage you to do. The other thing, and all of this is going to have to do with the Culture to Canvas project that we're going to do in a couple of weeks. It's for inspiration, okay? The other thing is, I want you to find out the name, like, of your legendary or storied place and what it means. So Ka'ulaula is one. There are others. And so you want to learn the name of a Wahipana, or a storied and celebrated place. And then I want you to go find the name of your water source. Like, where does your water come from? Not the county system, but like a spring or, a water source. So all of our water, most of our water comes from Mount Waialeale. How does that work? Okay, so I'm just gonna leave it at that. So these are some of the things that inspires me as an artist. So, it wasn't until I was a full-grown adult that I told myself, I want to be an artist. I worked in the hotel industry for almost 2 decades, 20 years. And I was raised in hula. I didn't have a choice. And hula kept me grounded and connected to the island, to the stories, to the history, and today I'm still very, very passionate about all of that. So prior to the Calvinist missionaries arriving, we didn't have a written language. Everything had to be stored in the memory banks of our brains. Okay? So how do we do that? We tell stories, we sing songs, we dance the hula, we have rituals and ceremonies, there's prayers, there's all kinds of stuff. There's genealogy chats, okay? So, mo'oku auhau. So the last thing, I gave you plenty of assignments already. But all of this is good. And I already told you, yeah, if you have your grandparents or even your parents, talk story with them. Just ask them questions. Be curious. Because if you don't ask, they're not gonna tell you. And that weekend that I was working with my niece, and I was working the camera like some of the students are here, and I had my niece, write out like a script of the questions that she was going to ask her grandmother in an interview. And so as I was behind the camera and my niece was interviewing my mom, her grandmother, I was baffled at the stories that she was sharing. And I thought to myself, and when we took a break, I said, Mom, you never ever told us that story about sneaking and jumping on the sugarcane carts in Kahuku, which is on Oahu, and they would get in trouble, but her older cousins would always do that. And that was a shortcut home from Hau'ula School to the house, and many other things. And I thought, I felt so fortunate, and I felt so blessed that I witnessed this sharing of information. So gotta ask, yeah. You don't have to be a bug and nag about it, but be interested, because your parents and your grandparents want to share these things, but sometimes they think, oh, they go to school, they can learn all of that stuff. Things like this, you might not be able to learn it. Okay, so today I wanted to talk about Mo'oku Auhau, because Kamoali'i has a very impressive Mo'oku Auhau. His father is Ka'eo Kulani, who is a chief from Maui. And our genealogies cross over through my father's side. And his mother was Kamakahele. She came from a very high pedigree lineage of Kauai, ancient Kauai chiefs. So, that's just his parents. So that's where we start, Your parents' history, and then who's the grandparents? And what about your great-grandparents? sometimes when I'm teaching genealogy or as I have my own students research, they don't have information like going back great-great-grandfather. So it's a lot of work. It actually becomes a lifetime project, but it really is meaningful and it's very inspiring and fulfilling. Okay, so the word that I want to share is pilina. Can everybody say that? Pilina. Pilina, yeah. Pilina is connections. Like pili means to adhere or to connect, or sometimes be stuck. Like kapa'a. Pa'a means to be steadfast and to be connected. So pilina has to do with relationships. So your relationships with your schoolmates, your relationships with your community, your relationships with your school, your relationships with the extracurricular activities you have outside after school. And then, but I want to emphasize your pilina with a favorite place. So without putting too much thought to it, raise your hand. Anybody, where's your favorite place that pops into your mind right now? If you could like close your eyes and zap yourself there, where would you go? Your house. Exactly. Anybody else? Haena. Oh, I love Haena. Both of those answers are exceptional. We think of places that we have this pilina with because we experience something there. Like with what is your name, babes? Sydney. Like with Sydney, she says her hale, her house. And your house is your safe haven. You feel comfortable there. You feel safe. You feel warm. You feel protected. And that's how we should feel, you know, in our homes. So that is like a favorite place for a lot of people. Haena is beautiful. Haena is storied. There's so many wahipana out there that have legends and mele and hula about it. So all of these things I want us to think about over the next couple of weeks, because when I come back, we're actually gonna have you tap into your imagination and tap into the inspiration that you get from connecting to different experiences, people, places, stories, your water source, your mountain, your legendary place, all of those kinds of things. So this is a really cool opportunity. I'm so stoked Auntie M invited me to be a part of this. And for all of you, Haumana, for all of you students, this is an opportunity for you to engage in something that nobody else is doing. Nobody else is having this event or this opportunity in any of the schools. So I want to encourage you to sign up. Maureen is going to share about how you do that if your teachers haven't already talked about that. But you'll have to fill out the application, get your parents to help you, your family guardian or whatever, and then get those applications in, because you know it's limited spaces and so on and so forth. So what are we doing? Okay, so Culture to Canvas is my work, and I have these creative maker events where people come and they engage in art. So I started this off as like a paint and sip, paint and sip offerings, and I do it regularly out in the community. But the difference is that it is inspired by Hawaiian culture. And actually, so on Instagram and social media, it's at Culture to Canvas, just all spelled out. But this weekend, the featured painting is actually not Hawaiian. It's of beautiful sunflowers. But how many of you know that there's like a field of hundreds of acres right in your hometown, like in Mauka of Makaweli, that they just started planting sunflower fields for renewable fuel and food? Do you guys know that? Oh my God, that's like so cool. You can't see it because it's way up on private leased land. But I was so inspired. They planted 100 acres on Earth Day earlier this year in April. In July, they harvested their first, that same 100 acres. And in each of the acres, there's like 250,000 blooms. That's a lot of sunflowers. There's like millions right here in Waimea. This is like Malama Aina kind of stuff. This is good for the environment. It's good for our future. So sometimes we're painting a subject that's not Hawaiian, but the engaging with the actual activity is very Hawaiian because I'm talking about the Aina in Waimea and how it helps to sustain responsibly using the land. These are all former sugarcane lands, which is the thirstiest crop. It drinks up all of our water. Okay, so what we're going to do is, and I just brought some samples. When you fill out your application and there is a deadline, what is the deadline? The 12th. September 12th is the deadline. And you will be able to select which painting you want to do. So far I did 3. I was just thinking I'm gonna just do 2. I'm gonna do a Mauka painting and a Makai painting. So all of the canvases will be pre-sketched, which means that it's like color by numbers without the numbers. So you won't have to think about how do I start. You're just basically gonna come and you're gonna follow the guidelines, and then you're gonna use the reference photo, and you're gonna use the colors, but you can change the colors. That's my rule with Culture to Canvas. I don't want to dictate to anybody what colors you should use. I have a sample that you can follow, but if you want to change the plants to be a different color, then you can do that. Because colors have mana, colors have energy, and we all resonate with different colors differently. So does anybody know what bird this is? Tiger. Akikiki. Everybody say akikiki. This bird lives only on Kauai. It's endemic to Kauai. It exists nowhere else in the world. Very cool. Very cool, but very worrisome. Because in our lifetime, this bird is going to go extinct. It's going to disappear forever.
That's what I was standing.
Yes, you can be the that.
So just to kind of, if I can say one thing,
Yeah.
because one of the things that Friends of King Kamali'i is doing is we are putting a garden up there to replace exactly what you said. The sugarcane came and went, scraped everything away. So when I say that we want to support natives, it's not only people, it's the plants and the birds. And so that's what the focus of this particular Kamali'i plants and birds are area. And there are
Yeah.
plenty. You're probably going to say this too. But if you can imagine, you know where the site is, it's all kind of dry and all that. The forest came all the way down. The birds that are forest birds, they came all the way down to sea level. So it isn't just the seabirds, which I happen to love,
Yeah.
but it's also the forest birds that were important.
Yeah.
So what you choose is what resonates with you.
Yeah, so you're gonna have a choice. And so the project is called Flora, Fauna, Friends and Family. Right?
Friends and family. So if you
Yeah.
want to bring your auntie or your mother or father or grandmother or an aunt, someone else, we don't want it to have to be just kids. We want it to be
Yeah.
Ohana-like.
So it's a special opportunity, and you get to paint with, a friend or a family member. So I just did this one.
Okay.
So this one here is like my imagination of what the site could look like, you know, later on, or what it might have looked like back then is more like it. So what I did was I put in a wall because there was a heiau there. There was a whole complex.
Still is.
Yeah, there still is. And, but we're learning, yeah, everybody's learning about, you know, what this complex included. So there's a wall there, and then what is this island over here? Anybody know? It's Ni'ihau. And Kaumoali'i has his back towards me. It's like I'm taking the picture, I'm painting this from the back. I'm just like witnessing him standing there, and he's looking out across the Kaulakahi Channel to Ni'ihau. Ni'ihau was part of the Kauai Kingdom. And so that's his pilina with Ni'ihau, is that it's part of his governing kuleana. So there's Ni'ihau, and then I'm gonna like, I've never painted Lolu before. So fan palms are endemic to Kauai and other Hawaiian islands. So these are very rare. And at some point in time, you guys are gonna plant some down there?
Well,
Maybe.
sad story. We have one there now. We
It's
have,
struggling.
no. We had 6. They were all on, the way the platform where the king statue is, it faces where the sun sets at certain times. So we had one on each of the, I guess you would call it meridians. Somebody stole them.
Oh my gosh. Oh,
And
That's
they were
hepa.
special ones from Ni'ihau.
oh, that's horrible.
So we have one that Uncle Mike gave us back, one. But he grows them, when he finds seeds, he goes and gets the seeds. Going to Ni'ihau to get the seeds is not like, okay, I'm just gonna go into town and get some
Yeah.
seeds. No,
Yeah.
that's not him. But anyway, so we want more.
Good.
And we have to kind of wait a little bit because, another long story short, the whole area, we're using drip to plant in
To irrigate.
Naupaka and the beds we just did, but it doesn't have electric up on site. And from 2018, State Parks and DLNR, we're supposed to get to work on putting pathways and a lawn and the bathrooms and some other things, but they're held up.
Yeah. Doesn't happen overnight.
Well, I'm hoping it happens in my lifetime.
Yes. So part of the Culture to Canvas project is to manifest that, is to
Yes.
imagine,
Right.
is to put energy towards it. Create a
It will
painting.
come.
If you paint it, it will come. I love that. That's like a t-shirt. So I have King Kaumoali'i here. Anybody want to guess why he's only wearing all yellow feathers? So I thought about it as I was doing this last night. Oh, I should put like a nice design on his ahu'ula, on his cloak. And then I remembered years ago when I was doing protocol training for the Aloha Festival's Royal Court, is Auntie Saraka Ilikea, who has long passed away, but she was my mentor. And when she helped me set up the court, she said, your highest ranking ali'i wears pure yellow ahu'ula. And I asked her why, and she said, because those are the most precious of all the feathers of the birds. So that bird, the o'o and the mamo, they've long been extinct. Not because our ancestors made cloaks and kahili and other things like that, but it's because of, you know, foreign diseases via the mosquitoes, and we're still fighting that to keep our birds alive from perishing. So the yellow ahu'ula, the cloak and the helmet, was to symbolize and recognize his high status and rank as a paramount chief. This, what looks like a lei around his neck, is like the backside of a lei niho palaua, which actually is a carved whalebone, like ivory, that's shaped like a tongue.
so consistent.
Oh yeah, like this. Yeah.
So Dr.
Barney and
Diekman
Ferns.
is really a good resource for that because that's her work besides working as a parent, what do you call it? Parent community person. She also works for the Forest Bird Recovery. So the whole thing about mosquitoes and rod and so on, she like knows everything about that. And the mosquito thing is it's like getting handled, but
Not soon enough.
not soon enough, of course. But
Yeah, not soon
we've
enough.
only got a couple minutes left. I just wanted, because she didn't bring any samples, but the seabirds are also really, I mean, because I live right there by the ocean and
Yeah.
right next to Pa'ulaula, there are seabirds.
Yeah.
that you
We'll have a
see
couple of
regularly.
seabirds
And
to add to the mix.
what's interesting about some of them right now, it's their nest, it's their time, like the shearwater, the a'o, is they're coming home to roost, I guess you would call it. But when they fledge, when they're born, and then they can finally learn how to fly, this is the time of the year. There's a release that happens every year. In fact, I think I have a picture for you that was one year that I helped usher them out. But what's really cool about these birds is they go off for 5 or 6 or 7 years. So they take off across the ocean, fly all the way across the ocean to like Alaska and Canada and sometimes south too. And they don't come home until they're ready to feel that urge to be married. And they only choose one spouse, okay, so I don't know. But when it's that time for them, they come back to exactly the place where they were born.
Yeah.
And for us around here, it's in the mountains, in the cliffs of Waimea and Hanapepe. They're nesting grounds. So I don't know if you guys have noticed, there are these, like on the wires, at least when you go past Pa'ulaula, there's these like copper colored things about this
They're
big-
reflectors.
They're reflectors. And those were put there by Kauai Electric because they go toward the light. They follow the stars.
Pardon the interruption again. Students, 6th graders are in the play court today. Again, 6th graders in the play court.
So they have this instinct to come back to, say, the cliffs above Waimea, and they're following the stars, but then all the street lights, and believe me, not like Honolulu, but all the street lights and the car lights and stuff confuse them. And so they put the reflectors on the wires so that it would reflect up and they would go over the wires safely home. Because if they fall, if they like ran into a wire and got stunned and it knocked them to the ground, what happens is they're fair prey for feral cats, particularly if they didn't just break a wing in the fall. And they don't have the kind of feet, they have swimming feet to travel 2,500 miles across the ocean. So they don't walk very good. So that's the danger, and that's why you might have seen or heard, like the fire department here in Waimea has a place, if you find one, you can bring it there. There's like a cage you could put it in, or they'll put it
They're
in
like
there.
boxes. So
Yeah.
all the fire stations have them.
Yeah. So-
And then there's the Save Our Shearwaters organization, and they go out and they check the boxes and
They might come to, they.
take care of the shearwaters.